Welcome back to the channel. So, early signing day is over, right? Early signing day is over. And the big news that came out of early signing day was that Cormani McLean, UM's most highly rated recruit, did not sign. Now, you got different types of speculation going on out there. You got some people that are saying Cormani McLean is very much locked in with the University of Miami, has gone so far to be one of the best recruiters for the University of Miami and trying to get guys to come play with him. And it's an ACT score that is, somewhat putting things into a limbo, into jeopardy. And then obviously, of course, you got your negative Nancy's, your detractors, the guys that are saying he's been a diva, he's been a GDI, he's trying to run up his NIL value. He's gonna go play for Colorado, or he's gonna go play for Bama, or he's gonna go play for Florida, right? So whatever side of the street that you're on, man, cool, right? Because one side's gonna be right, right? One side is gonna be right once the proverbial dust settles, right? But it is one particular rumor that I wanna kind of address. I want to kind of talk about, and that particular rumor is the one where some people are saying that someone, and most people are pointing the finger at T-Rob, are telling Kimani McLean that, hey, DVD's not gonna be there next year. He's not gonna be there. And my thing is, this is like, T-Rob, how can you say that? How can you say someone's not going to be somewhere, right? But, by all intents and purposes, man, T-Rob is one of the best, recruiting DB coaches in America, man. You know what I mean? So I can't knock him, right? I can't knock a guy for, going to different jobs, man. May feel like that Alabama was gonna fast track him to be a defensive coordinator again. So I can't knock a guy for trying to look out for his elevation in this particular game, right? So I can't get too mad with you. But if T-Rob, if you're out there telling guys that and it's not true, hey man, come on. But in any regard, Coach Hayes brought this to my attention. And that was the situation with JTT, the defensive tackle for Ohio State. JTT did not sign his letter of intent and fax it in until June. And so the reason I think that's important is because if there is a situation that DVD is going to leave, DVD is going to have to leave somewhere around February, March, because it's going to be time for spring football. And so you're gonna want to be there with your guys, so getting yourself acquainted with the players that you're going to be coaching, right? So Cormani McLean could just hold out and sign in March, April, May, because he's not an early enrollee, So it's no pressure to get it in, immediately in February. So that'll be interesting to monitor. But some people in the know say that DVD is happy being in Miami, being on the staff. Obviously, of course, he has aspirations of getting back to being an on-field coach again. But as it currently sits, he's fine in the role that he currently occupies, right? So, you take that for what it's worth, right? So, getting on to another particular point, right? The most people saying, well, Kimani McLean is not going to make or break this class. We got a top 5 class, so we need to stop worrying about it. He's not going to make or break the class. And that's a true statement. One player does not make or break a class, right? He doesn't. But let's talk about this, though. The law averages tell you that only 7 to 10 guys are going to work out in this particular class. So while Kimani McLean, in the grand scheme of things, is not going to make or break this class, Cormani McLean could very well be one of the 7 to 10 guys that actually works out in this class, and that's vital. That's very important. Again, when I was on live with Groovy Lou Wholesome and Coach Hayes, salute to all those guys, we went back to the 2008 class. 2008 class was ranked 8th overall in the entire country, right? Player average was above 90, right? It edged out I think it was Al Golden's 2000 and It was either 2012 class. I think it was a 2012 class because we got Duke Johnson in 2012, right? It edged that particular class out. But if we were to go back and look at the number of guys that panned out, then we would have to say that 2012 class did more than the 2018 class, if my memory serves me correctly. Because in that 2018 class, we only had about 3 guys that panned out. 3. That's Gregory Rousseau, Brevin Jordan, and Will Mallory. And some people may say Will Mallory didn't pan out, but, I mean, he was a starter, so, I mean, by default, he panned out, right? That's 3. And we signed 20-plus guys out of that particular class. So when you take that into consideration, it's very vital that if you got some high-end guys, you need to make sure that they sign. I'm not saying that all high-end guys are going to pan out because that's just not the nature of the business. It just doesn't work like that. But by all intents and purposes, most people feel comfortable that Kimani McLean will pan out. And I feel that way too, but I'm not going to rubber stamp it and say, yeah, Cormani McClain is going to pan out. But today, December 24, 2023, most people will confidently say that Cormani McClain would be one of those 7 to 10 guys that actually pan out. And the reason I say that is because, and this is just a play on words. You have people that say, hey, look, we got guys. Well, we talk about the big-time recruiting schools, the Georgias, the Bamas, Ohio States, LSUs, Oklahomas, whatever. And we say that, that's what you got to do. You got to continue to stack talent on top of talent on top of talent. That's how you build depth. But the reality of the situation is that you're stacking this amount of talent on top of each other because you're making up for evaluation misses. You're making up for guys who maybe got kicked off the team prematurely, guys who maybe leave prematurely, guys who transfer, guys, like I say, kicked off the team, ruled academically ineligible, just a myriad of different things, guys who you didn't realize that, hey, they actually maxed out in high school. They can't go any higher as far as level of performance, right? So that's why you have to continue to stack talent on top of that. And the reason I say that is because I have a team that is actually stacking talent on top of talent, and they're actually hitting on their evaluations at a higher rate than I would say at Alabama, Georgia. And that team is Clemson. And the reason I say that is because we were having a discussion, right? It was 2 different discussions. I was involved in a discussion. I was involved in a discussion on the 247 board, and I was involved in a discussion on Facebook. And so what was brought to my attention, which I kind of knew this already, but I didn't know it was like this until I actually went back and looked. But Clemson since 2014 only has 4 top 10 classes. They only have 4. And they only have 1 class that was ranked top 5. I only have 1 top 5 class. Now, what's so important about this? And I'll say this, I'll preface this by saying this, both sides are right. My stance is right, and the other stance is correct, too. And I'm going to tell you about both stances, right? And I'm going to get back to Miami because I know some people, they don't care about Clemson, right? They don't like Dabo or whatever the situation is, right? But Clemson has had years. Well, let me say this. We've heard that in order for you to compete for a championship, you need to recruit in the top 5. You need to recruit in the top 5, right? You need your top 5 class. But again, when you look at Clemson and you look at the classes leading up to that first national championship that they got, what you'll see classes that are ranked outside the top 10. That's what you'll see. But that's just looking at it from a grander scale, right? Which that's true. But when you dig deep into that, it gets back to, well, what is the player average? What is the quality of the player that they're signing? Because if you're signing a class with 16, 17, 18 guys, you're not even using the 25 slots because obviously you have talked older guys into staying and they've bought in. They felt like, hey, we got unfinished business. Then you're not going to have as much wiggle room as you need. So when we look at the player averages, the composite has showed that Clemson is a top 5 team. because of player averages. And so that's where the other stance is correct, right? But my stance is they don't recruit in the top 10. But from an average player rating perspective, they are a top 5 team. And the reason that's so interesting about that is, like I said, if you're signing 17, 18, 19 guys, you got to hit on those guys. So imagine if the law of averages say you're going to hit on 7 to 10 guys out of a 25, 30-man class. I mean, that's all right. I mean, you're going to continue to recruit on top of it. You have to. But if you're signing 16, 17, 18, 19 guys, and out of that, 7 to 10 guys are hitting, that's exceptional. Those are home runs. Those are grand slams, right? And so that means that you're doing some good coaching, you're doing some great evaluating, and you're developing the guys. The guys are getting developed, right? Obviously, the most notable development player obviously has to be Isaiah Simmons. Isaiah Simmons was a 3-star. But by the time Isaiah Simmons left, you had some people saying, oh, no, man, Isaiah Simmons was a 5-star player. No, he was a 5-star. Like, no, go back and look. They developed that young man. And he took the coaching. And by the time Isaiah Simmons left, Isaiah was a freak athlete, right? Doing a lot of different things for that defense, right? So that's kind of how you have to look at that. And which gets me to this leftover. The leftover topic, man. And I hate that, man. I hate that because it's like you're demeaning players before they even get to campus. You're falling in love with stars, but you say that, well, I trust the coach's evaluation, right? But you're saying, oh, we're getting the guys that the other schools didn't want, right? And it could be some truth to that. But when we look at a situation like Al Blaze was ranked higher because Robert Stafford, I believe he's rated like a 94, right? 94. Al Blaze was 95. Al Blaze is 95, very high 4-star player. But Al Blaze was considered to be a leftover. Why? Because you was on the same team with Tyson Campbell and Pat Surtain, who were consensus 5-star players. So you're considered to be a leftover. So that 2018 DB class, from a cornerback perspective, who did we sign? We signed Al Blaze Jr., we signed Gilbert Frierson, we signed DJ Ivey. So now let's look at this particular class right now. Let's look at that DB class. 2 of those guys have transferred this past year, and DJ Ivey has declared for the NFL draft. So you compare that to Tyson Campbell, Pat Surtain, and even C.J. Henderson, who was the class before that, and we'll say, man, that's why we got to sign those highly rated guys. But then I can turn around on the flip side, and I say, okay, well, let's look at the safety class. Let's compare Jaquan Johnson and Cedric Redwine to Gervin Hall and Bubba Bolden. Jaquan Johnson as well as Cedric Redwine went to the NFL. Gervin Hall and Bubba Bolden, who were looked to be more athletic, to look to be better, it didn't work out. And that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. I go back to the University of Alabama, and I'm gonna get out of here in a second. Deshaun Hand was a top 5 player when he came out, and he ended up going to the University of Alabama. And he was looked at to be a can't-miss prospect and all this particular stuff like this. But he got to the University of Alabama, and it didn't pan out. It didn't pan out. Now, obviously, of course, you have the people that'll say, well, the rebuttal is, well, yeah, you got that, but man, if you can sign the top such players from South Florida, whatever the situation is, the average will work itself out. Well, if that's the case, Al Blaze Jr. was considered the top player from South Florida just on his rating. So again, as much as people try to take coaching away from a lot of this stuff, coaching is still very much involved in this, man. Because you gotta trust that the coach is going to pick the right player. And sometimes we go back to Larry Coker. Those were highly, highly rated classes during the early part of his tenure. It didn't work out. It didn't. It didn't work out. So if you got again, these Alabama, Georgia classes and stuff like this. They're having from a high end player perspective, they're having situations where you, again, like I said, you only got 7 to 10 guys working out. So if you look at that, would you say that they're recruiting great from a result standpoint? No, because again, one of the biggest knocks on Nick Saban is, well, just because they go to Alabama, that don't mean they're gonna work out. That's one of the knocks. So my thing is, this is like, let's stop saying guys are leftovers, man, until their college career is over. Because this is what people conveniently are going to do. People are going to conveniently forget the guys, the highly rated guys that was in the class with them, and they're only going to focus on that. I'm only going to focus on our guys, right? So just like I said, C.J. Henderson and then the Bird kid, right? Bird went to Tennessee. It didn't work out. I think he switched over to receiver. It didn't work out. So you forget about Bird. But you remember Henderson, you remember Pat Surtain, and you remember Tyson Campbell. But there are a multitude of other highly rated guys who wouldn't be considered leftovers that went to different places and didn't work out. Frank Lasson didn't work out. Torrance Gibson didn't work out. You know what I'm saying? And those are just some of the guys. Benjamin Victor didn't work out. So these are just some Deion Cole. It's just the guys didn't work out, but nobody wants to talk about that. We rather sit up here and say, oh, man, we stuck with the leftovers. And we won with the leftovers. We won when Jaquan Johnson and Cedric Redwine were at safety. We won when Rayshawn Jenkins and Deion Bush were at safety. Well, no, when Rayshawn Jenkins and Jamal Carter were at safety. We won. They weren't, but they will be considered leftover guys. So I take offense to that, man, because it's like, again, a guy hasn't even taken a collegiate snap yet, man. And people get so caught up in stars, man, and it's amazing, right? And even right now, like, when Justin Flo entered the portal, and guys were just arguing, like, man, Mario got him out of high school. Yeah, he had some injuries, but man, that freak athlete, man, 5-star. You take a risk on a 5-star player. Why? Why? How would Jalen Phillips? Jalen Phillips didn't have those type of injuries. Why? Most people would say that Gregory Rousseau, who was a 3-star player, Jalen Phillips may have moved a little bit more fluidly, but from a pass rusher standpoint and stuff like that, they both in the NFL. And I don't think anyone would say Jalen Phillips is better than Greg Rousseau or Greg Rousseau is better than Jalen Phillips. That's how the cookie crumbles. There's no metric to say that a 5-star player has a better shot of working out or even a 4-star player, because obviously it's only 32 5-star players. So let's say a highly rated 4-star player and a highly rated and obviously a 5-star player. There's no metric to say that they work out better than a guy that's a 3-star or a low 4-star, the leftover guys, right? But man, that's all I got to say about that. And just getting back to my original point, Kimani McLean won't make or break this class, but Cormani McClain can make or break this particular class from a standpoint of he could be one less guy that actually works out, that missing on that guy that leaves us with potentially one less guy that actually works out in this particular class. And we can't have that in the situation where we're trying to rebuild the University of Miami. So as always, man, like, share, subscribe, man. We're almost at 200, man. I think last I looked at 196, man. So please, man, let's get to that 200 mark, man. And if we get to that 200 mark, I think I'm gonna give out a gift card or something, man. $100 gift card or something like that, man. So I'm gonna work on something. I'm gonna see if I can go live or something. So y'all tune in if y'all watch this video this long, and I'm gonna give out a gift card, man. So be on the lookout for that, right? So let's get to 200, man. Let's like, share, subscribe, and most importantly, man, let's comment, man. As always, man, it's always about the you, and I'm out.